There is a dangerous idea spreading through the fasting world. It's the idea that the longer you can go without eating, the better it is, and the healthier you are becoming. That hunger is simply something to conquer, that feeling weak and dizzy and exhausted is just your body healing, that nausea means your body is just clearing itself out, and that stopping a fast means you failed. But none of those things are automatically true. Sometimes hunger is simply hunger. Sometimes dizziness means your blood pressure is dropping. Sometimes being so weak you can't function means your body needs energy. Sometimes a pounding heart means your electrolytes are becoming imbalanced, and sometimes nausea means something is really wrong. And sometimes the healthiest thing that you can do during a fast is eat. Welcome back to the Fasting Project. This is episode 10. And today we are going to have one of the most important conversations we have had in this entire series. We are going to talk about how to fast without hurting yourself. We are going to talk about the difference between productive discomfort and a genuine warning sign. We are going to talk about hydration, salt, electrolytes, medications, blood sugar, muscle preservation, undernourishment, and the proper way to break a fast. We are also going to talk about who should probably not fast without professional guidance and who may not need to fast at all. Because I believe in fasting. I believe there is tremendous wisdom in creating periods of metabolic rest. I believe that modern society has normalized constant eating in a way that may be working against our natural biology. I believe there is value in allowing insulin to fall, allowing stored energy to become available, allowing digestion to rest, and allowing the body to experience rhythms of nourishment and absence. But believing in fasting does not mean pretending that fasting is risk free. And it does not mean believing that more fasting is always better fasting. One of my goals with the fasting project has never been to convince every person watching to stop eating for as long as possible. No. My goal is to help us rediscover a healthier relationship with food, hunger, nourishment, and rest. Fasting is only one half of that rhythm. The other half is eating. The other half is rebuilding. The other half is receiving nourishment. The other half is giving the body the protein, minerals, vitamins, fats, carbohydrates, fiber, and energy it needs to repair what fasting asks it to repair. You cannot remove forever. At some point, restoration requires resources. So today, we are putting up some guardrails around fasting, not because fasting is bad, but because anything powerful deserves to be understood. A fire can warm your home. It can cook your food. It can illuminate in the dark. But fire without boundaries can destroy the very thing it was meant to serve. Fasting is similar. Used wisely, it can become a tool, but used compulsively or recklessly or without regard for your individual health, it can become another form of stress. And the body does not care whether stress arrived through a difficult relationship, a sleepless night, an infection, an extreme workout, financial pressure, or a fast that went too far. The body still has to respond. So let's begin with the first principle of safe fasting. Fasting is a stressor, and this may surprise people because we often describe fasting using words such as like healing, restoration, repair, and renewal. And those words may apply in the right context, but biologically, fasting begins as a stressor. You stop bringing energy into the body. Blood glucose begins to change and insulin declines. The body starts drawing more heavily from stored fuel. Glycogen is used, fatty acids become more available, ketone production may increase. Stress hormones can rise to help maintain energy and alertness, and the body begins adapting to the absence of incoming nutrition. This adaptive response is part of what makes fasting interesting. A controlled challenge can sometimes stimulate the body to become more resilient. Exercise works in a similar way. When you lift weights, you place controlled stress on muscle tissue. And when you recover properly, the body adapts by becoming stronger. But imagine concluding that because lifting weights can make you stronger, lifting weights continuously for 5 days must make you 5 times stronger. It would not. At some point, the productive stimulus would become damage. The same general principle applies to fasting. A small or moderate stress may produce adaptation. A stress that is too intense, too frequent, or combined with too many other stressors may overwhelm your capacity to recover. This is one reason two people can follow the same fasting schedule and have completely different experiences. One person may be metabolically healthy, well nourished, sleeping well, carrying adequate energy reserves, and taking no medications. Another person could be underweight or overweight, iron deficient, sleep deprived, chronically stressed, taking glucose lowering medication, and already struggling to eat enough protein. A 16-hour fast is not the same physiological event for those two people. The clock may be identical. The context is not. And your context matters more than the number you post online. There is no trophy inside your body reaching a particular fasting period. Like there's no reward for that. Your cells are not checking social media. Your liver does not know whether someone else completed a 3-day fast. Your nervous system does not care that a wellness influencer told you hunger is weakness leaving the body. Your body responds to its own condition. That means safe fasting begins with honesty, not ambition, not competition, not ideology. Honesty. What condition is my body currently in? Am I well nourished? Am I losing weight unintentionally or gaining weight rapidly unintentionally? Am I sleeping? Am I under unusual emotional strain? Am I pregnant or breastfeeding or like I'm not, but ask yourself these things. Do you have a history of disordered eating? Are you taking medication that is affected by food intake? Ask yourself, do I experience fainting, low blood pressure, hypoglycemia, heart rhythm problems, or kidney disease? Am I still growing? How old are you? Are you under 20? You're probably still growing. Am I elderly or physically frail? Do I have enough nutritional reserve to create an intentional period without nourishment? These questions are not signs of fear. They are signs of wisdom. Ask yourself. Now, let's discuss fasting versus undernourishment. We need to distinguish between intentional fasting from chronic undernourishment. They are not the same thing. A well-designed fasting rhythm contains two clearly defined phases. There is a period of abstaining and there is a period of nourishing. During the nourishing phase, the body receives enough energy and enough essential nutrients to maintain itself. Chronic undernourishment is different. That is when the body repeatedly fails to receive what it requires. Protein intake remains too low. Total energy remains too low. Mineral intake is inadequate. Vitamins are missing. Weight continues falling. Muscle is gradually lost. Hormonal function may be changing. Recovery becomes more difficult. Fatigue increases. Cold intolerance may appear. Hair may begin thinning. Menstrual cycles may change or just disappear. Mood and concentration may be affected. The immune system may become less resilient. In that situation, adding more fasting does not necessarily create restoration. It may simply deepen the deficit. This is especially important because fasting can reduce appetite in some people. That is often advertised as one of its greatest advantages. And for someone who is trying to reduce excessive calorie intake, a quieter appetite can be super helpful. And it may actually help them feel better. But for someone who already struggles to eat enough, appetite suppression may not be a benefit. It may become a liability. We have to stop treating every biological effect as universally positive. Lower appetite is not always good. Weight loss is not always good. Lower blood sugar is not always good. Lower blood pressure is not always good. A lower heart rate is not always good. A biological marker only makes sense in context. If someone's blood sugar is chronically elevated, reducing it may be beneficial. If someone's blood sugar is already falling too low, reducing it further can be dangerous. If someone has high blood pressure, an improvement may be welcome. And if someone is already fainting when they stand, an additional drop is not a victory. Health is not the relentless pursuit of lower numbers. Health is regulation. It is the body's ability to remain within a functional range and respond appropriately to changing conditions. That is why the goal of fasting should never be simply to eat as little as possible. The goal is to create an appropriate period of rest while protecting the body's capacity to rebuild. Let me say this clearly when we discuss who should not go without medical guidance. There are people for who fasting may be inappropriate, or for who it should only be attempted with qualified medical supervision. This generally includes children and adolescents who are still growing. It includes people who are pregnant and breastfeeding. It includes people with current or previous eating disorders, especially when fasting begins awakening obsessive thoughts or fear of food, binge and restrict cycles, or a sense of moral superiority based on how little they eat. Like, if any of this is happening, you should not do a fast without medical supervision. It includes people who are underweight, malnourished, physically frail, or experiencing unexplained weight loss. It includes people taking insulin or certain glucose lowering medications. It includes people with kidney disease, liver disease, serious heart conditions, unstable blood pressure, or recurrent fainting. It may include people recovering from surgery or serious illness and infection. Also may include people taking medications that need to be taken with food or whose absorption changes significantly when food intake changes. Prolonged fasting deserves an entirely different level of caution than simply finishing dinner earlier and waiting until breakfast to eat again. There is a major difference between a 12-hour overnight fast and ongoing several days without nutrition. Those practices should not be discussed as though they are interchangeable. The longer food is absent, the more important individual health status, medication management, hydration, electrolyte balance, nutritional reserves, and refeeding become. And please remember that talking to your doctor does not mean asking someone who knows nothing about your situation for generic permission. It means discussing the actual protocol. How long are you planning to fast? What will you consume? What medications are you taking? What conditions do you have? How will you monitor your symptoms? What will cause you to stop? How will you reintroduce food? A responsible fasting plan has an exit plan before the fast begins. You should not wait until you are confused, shaking, faint, or unable to think clearly before deciding what your stopping point will be. We need to address medications and fasting. Medication, it safely deserves special attention because fasting can change the environment in which a medication is working. Some medications lower blood glucose, some lower blood pressure, some affect fluid balance, some increase urination, some irritate the stomach when taken without food. Some need dietary fat for optimal absorption. Some may need to be taken at a particular time in relation to meals, and some medications have a narrow margin between the intended dose and an unsafe effect. When food intake changes dramatically, medication requirements, they may also change. Now, this does not mean you should stop taking medication on your own. Please do not interpret a fasting video as permission to discontinue anything: insulin, blood pressure medication, Caesar medication, steroids, psychiatric medications, any prescribed treatment. It means the medication needs to be considered before the fast begins. For example, a person taking insulin, um, or something that may even have a greater risk of hypoglycemia when taken without food, like, they really need to discuss with their doctor before engaging in a fast. A person taking medication that lowers blood pressure may become lightheaded if fasting. Dehydration and medication all move blood pressure in the same direction. Like, a person taking a diuretic may lose additional fluid and electrolytes. Like, someone taking a medication that may be taken with food may experience nausea or irritation if they suddenly take it on an empty stomach. The safest question is not, can people fast while taking medication? That question is way too broad. The better question is, how does this specific fasting protocol interact with this specific medication in this specific person? That is a conversation for a pharmacist or medical professional who can review the actual medication. Your pharmacist may be one of the most accessible resources available to you. Ask whether the medication must be taken with food. Ask whether fasting changes the risk of low blood sugar, low blood pressure, dehydration, stomach irritation, or altered absorption. Ask what symptoms require immediate attention. Fasting should never become a reason to hide medication use or pretend a diagnosed condition does not exist. Wisdom is not denial. Wisdom works with reality. So let's discuss what discomfort is normal. Fasting is not always comfortable, and discomfort alone does not necessarily mean that something is wrong. During the early stages of a fast, some people may notice hunger waves. They may notice habitual cravings at the times they usually eat, and they may feel slightly irritable. Who hasn't been hangry at times? They may experience a mild headache, particularly if you abruptly reduce caffeine or carbs. You might notice changes in energy as the body transitions between fuel sources, and you may think about food more often than usual. The stomach may growl and you might feel colder. Some people describe a temporary reduction in exercise performance. These experiences may be manageable and may improve as the body adjusts. Hunger also tends to arrive in waves. It does not always rise continuously until it becomes unbearable. Sometimes it builds, peaks, and then declines. Drinking water, changing activities, going for a gentle walk, praying, journaling, or simply waiting for a short period may allow the wave to pass. But this is where discernment matters. The fasting community sometimes takes every unpleasant symptom and places it under the label of detoxification. That can be dangerous. The body does have sophisticated systems for processing and eliminating substances. Your liver, kidneys, gastrointestinal tract, lungs, skin, lymphatic system, they all contribute. But a severe symptom should not be romanticized simply because it happened during a fast. A fast does not make a symptom virtuous. So some warning signs that should not be ignored. These are, there are symptoms that are normal, but there are symptoms that should prompt you to stop, seek help, or obtain medical evaluation. So these would include fainting or nearly fainting, confusion, disorientation, difficulty speaking normally, like there's something you want to say and you just can't quite get it out. Like that's right. Severe weakness, chest pain, significant shortness of breath, a sustained racing, pounding, or irregular heartbeat, like anything, whether it just won't stop or not good. Repeated vomiting or an inability to keep fluids down, severe abdominal pain, black or bloody stools. Let's see. Severe or worsening headaches, new neurological symptoms, any type of seizure activity, a significant change in consciousness, or signs of severe dehydration, or symptoms of hypoglycemia, such as like excessive shaking, sweating, confusion, intense weakness, blurred vision, unusual behavior, loss of consciousness. If you have diabetes and use glucose lowering medication, you should have a specific plan for your medical team rather than relying only on how you feel. Some people can have dangerously low or high glucose levels without recognizing the symptoms clearly. Other warning signs may be less dramatic but still meaningful, like dizziness every time you stand, a persistent inability to function normally, weakness that continues worsening, or a heart rate that feels unusually high, severe muscle cramping, persistent nausea, very dark urine or urinating much, much less than usual. Not good. An ability or inability, I should say, to complete ordinary activities safely. Now, these are not opportunities to prove your commitment. They are information. Your body communicates through symptoms. The goal is not to panic at every sensation. The goal is also not to silence every signal. There is a difference between observing discomfort and overriding danger. Hydration, let's talk about that. It's more than drinking as much water as possible. When people begin fasting, they're often told to drink water, and that advice sounds simple. But hydration is more complicated than pouring unlimited plain water into the body. Your body maintains a carefully regulated balance of water and dissolved minerals. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, chloride, phosphate, and other substances that help support nerve signaling, muscle contraction, and fluid distribution, and just normal heart function. When insulin falls, the kidneys they may release more sodium and water. And some people notice that they urinate more during the early stage of fasting. Glycogen depletion also releases water that had been stored with glycogen. That is part of the reason weight may fall rapidly at the beginning of a fast. Much of that early change may be water, not body fat. If fluid and sodium losses are not replaced appropriately, some people may develop headaches, fatigue, weakness, dizziness, or low blood pressure. But the solution is not always to drink gallons of plain water. Excessive water consumption can also dilute sodium in the blood. More is not always safer. Hydration should be guided by thirst, environmental heat, your activity level, kidney function, medications, your fasting length, and individual medical circumstances. Someone working outside in Kansas summer heat has different needs from someone sitting in an air conditioned room. Someone doing strenuous exercise has different needs from someone just sitting and resting. Someone with kidney disease or heart failure may have been told to limit sodium or fluids. That is why blanket electrolyte instructions can be misleading. I cannot tell every person watching to consume the same amount of salt, potassium, or magnesium. Those needs are not identical. Potassium deserves particular caution. Potassium is essential. But concentrated potassium supplementation can be dangerous for people with kidney impairment or those taking certain medications. Abnormal potassium levels, whether too low or too high, can affect heart rhythm. Electrolytes are not harmless simply because they are sold without a prescription. Natural does not mean unlimited, and more is not automatically better. For an ordinary overnight fast, most healthy adults do not need to turn hydration into a chemistry experiment. But as fasting becomes longer, hydration and electrolyte management becomes more important. If you are experiencing repeated dizziness, weakness, heart palpitations, or severe cramping, do not simply keep adding random electrolyte powders while extending the fast. This is a moment to stop and reassess. Okay. Now I want to talk about caffeine during a fast. Many people use caffeine during fasting because it suppresses appetite and increases alertness. But caffeine can complicate the experience. It may increase anxiety. It can contribute to jitteriness. It may worsen heart palpitations. It can irritate an empty stomach. It can interfere with sleep. And if fasting already increases stress hormones in a particular person, large amounts of caffeine can amplify that feeling. There is also another common problem. Someone decides to fast and stop caffeine on the same day, like they're really trying. Then they develop a severe headache, fatigue, and irritability and assume that the fast is causing a dramatic detoxification reaction. Sometimes it is caffeine withdrawal. If you use caffeine regularly and want to reduce it, tapering before a longer fast may make the experience easier to interpret. That way, you're not changing and figuring out like five different causes of your cravings and issues all at once. You can actually understand what your body is responding to. And remember that sleep matters. Using caffeine to force yourself through a fast after sleeping only like 4 hours is not necessarily creating health. It may be stacking one stressor on another. All right, let's discuss fasting and blood sugar. The human body has multiple systems that help maintain blood glucose when food is absent. The liver can release stored glucose. It can also produce glucose from other substrates. Fat stores can provide fatty acids, and the liver can produce ketones, which become an alternative fuel for several tissues. Now, in many healthy people, these systems allow blood glucose to remain within a functional range during an ordinary fast, but fasting doesn't affect everyone identically. Definitely not. Like in the same way, people taking insulin or glucose lowering medication require particular caution. People with diabetes may face risks from both low and high glucose, depending on the type of diabetes, medications, health status, and the fasting protocol. Type 1 diabetes is especially important because insufficient insulin can contribute to diabetic ketoacidosis. Diabetic ketoacidosis is not the same thing as the nutritional ketosis that may occur during fasting or a ketogenic diet. Nutritional ketosis generally involves controlled ketone production with enough insulin present to prevent runaway ketone accumulation. Diabetic ketoacidosis is a medical emergency involving severe metabolic disruption. The words sound similar. The circumstances are not. Anyone with diabetes considering fasting should have an individualized plan that addresses their medication, glucose monitoring, hydration, ketone monitoring when appropriate, stopping thresholds, and what to do if glucose moves outside the recommended range. This is one of those areas where enthusiasm is not a substitute for preparation. All right, let's also talk about fasting and blood pressure. Some people experience lower blood pressure while fasting. Now, this may occur because insulin changes, fluid shifts, sodium loss, weight loss, or medication effects alter circulation. For someone with high blood pressure, long term improvement may be desirable, but a sudden drop can cause dizziness and blurry vision and weakness or fainting. Pay attention to what happens when you stand. If you repeatedly become dizzy or feel as though the room is going dark, that is not a symptom to celebrate. Sit or lie down to prevent falling. Do not drive. Do not climb ladders. Do not push through an intense workout. And please do not assume that adding more willpower will solve a circulation problem. If you take blood pressure medication, fasting may change how your body responds to the dose. So, that is another reason medication review matters. I want to discuss the question of muscle loss. One of the most misunderstood fasting topics is muscle. You may hear one side claim that fasting immediately devours muscle, and you may hear another side claim that fasting perfectly preserves muscle and burns only fat. Reality is more nuanced. The body does have mechanisms that help conserve lean tissue during periods without food. And as fat availability and ketone production rises, the demand to convert amino acids into glucose it may decline. So growth hormone may also change during fasting, but none of that means muscle tissue becomes untouchable. Like the body still requires amino acids. Some protein breakdown and recycling occurs as part of normal metabolism. And when fasting is prolonged, repeated too frequently, or combined with inadequate protein intake, or practiced by someone who is already lean or undernourished, loss of lean mass becomes a greater concern. Weight loss during fasting is not pure fat loss. It may include water, glycogen, digestive contents, fat, and lean tissue. The percentage from each category, it depends on the person and protocol. This matters because muscle is not merely cosmetic. Muscle supports mobility. It helps regulate glucose. It protects your joints. It supports bones. It contributes to strength, independence, and metabolic health. As we age, preserving muscle becomes increasingly important. So, if your fasting practice is causing you to become progressively weaker, lose substantial lean mass, stop resistance training, and eat too little protein, it may not be like moving you toward your long term health. A healthy fasting practice should be compatible with physical function. That means the eating window needs to contain real nourishment, not just snacks, not just coffee or caffeine with a small meal, not just a salad with almost no protein, not an endless cycle of fasting followed by fear of calories. The body needs amino acids to rebuild. That is especially important after exercise, during recovery from illness, during aging, and for anyone already struggling to maintain weight. Resistance training, it may also help communicate to the body that muscle tissue is needed. But strenuous training during a long fast is not really appropriate for anyone. Training should match the fasting protocol, energy level, experience, and your overall health status. A gentle walk during an overnight fast is very different from attempting a personal record deadlift on day 4 without food. Again, context. Fasting is not a binge and restrict cycle. There is another danger we need to address here. Fasting can sometimes become like that, part of a binge and restrict cycle. A person overeats, they feel guilty, they decide to compensate by fasting. And during the fast, hunger and food preoccupation just increases. Eventually, they eat again and feel out of control, and then the guilt returns. So they begin another aggressive fast. The behavior may be described using health language, but underneath it is punishment. Fasting should not become a way to pay for eating. Food does not create moral debt. You do not need to suffer because you ate dessert. You do not need to earn your breakfast. You do not become a better person because you ignored hunger longer than someone else. And you are not spiritually superior because your plate is empty. Fasting has existed within religious traditions for thousands of years. But spiritually meaningful fasting is not supposed to become pride, performance, or self destruction. It is meant to create space, space for humility and space for prayer, space for generosity, space to recognize dependence on God, space to turn attention away from constant physical gratification and towards something greater. If fasting makes us cruel, obsessive, prideful, dishonest, or physically endangered, then we may be practicing the outward behavior while missing the inward purpose. There is a difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline teaches, punishment condemns. Discipline is guided by wisdom. Punishment, it's often driven by shame. Discipline can stop when stopping is appropriate, and punishment tends to insist that suffering must continue. Ask yourself honestly, am I fasting because I believe this is serving my health and my spiritual well being? Or am I fasting because I'm afraid to eat? Am I creating a sustainable rhythm, or am I trying to erase what I ate yesterday? Am I becoming more peaceful or more obsessive? Am I listening to my body or trying to defeat it? Those are two important questions, but also different. All right, I want to talk to women and discuss hormones and our individual response. Women are often given extremely confident fasting advice based on limited evidence. One person says every woman should fast according to a precise phase of her cycle, and another says women should never fast, and another promises that fasting will balance every hormone. and another claims that fasting will destroy hormonal health. The truth is that individual response varies, and the human evidence is still developing. A woman with insulin resistance and adequate nutritional reserves is going to respond differently from a woman who is underweight, overtraining, sleep deprived, and already experiencing irregular cycles. Fasting that reduces excessive energy intake and improves metabolic health may help certain hormonal conditions indirectly, but chronic energy deficiency can disrupt reproductive function. The body pays attention to energy availability. And if the body repeatedly receives signals that the resources are scarce, reproductive hormones may change. A missing menstrual cycle should not automatically be celebrated as proof of deep fasting adaptation. No, it can be a signal that the body does not perceive enough energy available to support normal reproductive function. Other signs that a fasting plan may be too aggressive can include worsening sleep, persistent coldness, hair loss, declining exercise ability, like you just can't do as much as you could before, feeling irritable or fatigued, super tired, more than normal. Reduced libido, like normally your hubby looks super fun, but lately while trying to fast, you just can't even find interest. There can be a connection. And also continued weight loss beyond what was intended. These symptoms can have a lot of causes, so they deserve evaluation rather than just automatically saying, oh, it's just detoxifying. Perimenopause and menopause also add complexity. Changes in sleep, body composition, insulin sensitivity, stress tolerance, your individual muscle mass can influence fasting response. A gentler overnight eating rhythm combined with resistant training, adequate protein, and high quality food may be more useful than repeatedly attempting extended fasts. The best protocol is not the one that sounds most extreme. It is the one that supports your actual health. So let's discuss fasting during illness because people often assume that because appetite sometimes falls during illness, deliberate fasting must also always accelerate recovery. But illness changes nutritional and fluid needs. Fever can increase fluid loss, vomiting and diarrhea can deplete water and electrolytes. Infection can increase metabolic demands, and recovery may require protein and energy. Also, certain medications may need to be taken with food. There may be situations in which a reduced appetite naturally shortens eating, but forcing a prolonged fast while dehydrated, weak, or unable to keep fluids down may be unsafe. So listen to the body, rest, hydrate appropriately, and do seek care when necessary. Fasting is not a substitute for medical treatment. And please do not delay urgent care because someone online told you the body heals everything once food is removed. The body has remarkable healing capacity. It also sometimes needs antibiotics, insulin, surgery, fluids, oxygen, medications, or emergency intervention. Respecting the body includes using appropriate medical care. All right, so let's discuss how long should a fast be? This is the question everyone wants answered. How many hours? 12, 14, 16, 18, 24, 3 days. Ooh, 7 days. But the question assumes that there is one ideal number for every person. There is not. A person who finishes dinner at 7 in the evening and eats breakfast at 7 in the morning has completed an overnight 12-hour fast. A person may not even think of that, right? A normal person isn't gonna. Let me put him down for a second because he's being so chewy. That may sound unimpressive, right? Just a 12-hour overnight in a culture that glorifies extremes. But it creates a clear period without food. It may eliminate late night snacking. It may support a more consistent circadian rhythm. And for many people, it may be a sustainable place to begin. Someone else may comfortably extend that overnight period to 14 hours, and another person may use a 10-hour eating window. And some might practice 16, 8, where you fast for 16 and eat for 8. And some might occasionally use a 24-hour fast. But longer is not automatically more therapeutic. Reese, come here. Recent human evidence is suggesting that intermittent fasting strategies can produce benefits for weight and certain metabolic markers, but they are often comparable to the benefits of ordinary continuous calorie reduction. Now, that does not make fasting useless. A fasting schedule may feel simpler or more natural for some people. It may reduce decision fatigue. It may help eliminate mindless snacking. Mealtime in itself may have value. It really can. But we should not exaggerate the human evidence. We do not yet have proof that everyone needs extreme fasting for longevity. We do not have proof that a particular hour guarantees a particular amount of autophagy in a living human being. We do not have a household test that announces cellular cleanup has now begun. These pathways are real, but the fasting internet often speaks about them with far more precision than human research currently allows. So rather than asking, what is the longest fast I can survive, ask, what is the minimum effective dose that supports my goal without compromising nourishment, sleep, strength, mood, medication safety, and normal life? That is a much healthier question. So let's discuss when a fast becomes too long. A fast may be too long for you when symptoms become progressively worse rather than stabilizing. When you can no longer function safely, if you're unable to sleep, or when you repeatedly faint or get confused, when your heart rhythm feels abnormal, or when you just can't stay hydrated, if you're vomiting, if your blood glucose moves outside the safe range established with your medical team, when the fast begins triggering disordered eating, or when you are continuing only because you are ashamed to stop, or when the original reason for fasting no longer justifies the strain it is creating. You are allowed to change your mind, my friend. You are allowed to eat earlier than planned. You are allowed to decide that a protocol is not right for you. You are allowed to learn from this experience without calling it failure. A fast is not a contract signed in blood. It is an experiment. And experiments respond to data. Your symptoms are data. The importance of refeeding is real. Okay, let's talk about it. We've got to talk about the part of fasting that receives far too little attention. Refeeding. Many fasting conversations treat the first meal as an afterthought. People obsess over how to stop eating. They count every fasting hour and they photograph the timer and they celebrate the finish line. And then they break the fast with an enormous meal and assume the process is complete. But refeeding is part of the fast. The transition back to nourishment matters. I'm going to ask my daughter to take him out. Sorry. Okay. So, like I was saying, you don't need an elaborate refeeding protocol after sleeping through the night without food. But after a prolonged period with little or no nutrition, especially in someone who is undernourished, has lost significant weight or has low electrolytes or has used alcohol heavily or has certain medical conditions, the reintroduction of food can create serious metabolic shifts. This is known as refeeding syndrome. Now, when carbohydrates are reintroduced, insulin rises, cells begin taking up glucose and electrolytes, and phosphate, potassium, and magnesium can shift from the blood into your cells. I think he needs to go out. Okay. Thank you. So when cells do begin taking up glucose and electrolytes, phosphate, potassium, and magnesium can shift from the blood into the cells, and thiamine demand increases, fluid and sodium balance can change. And in a high-risk person, these changes can affect the heart, the lungs, the muscles, and the nervous system. So refeeding syndrome can be life-threatening. Now, this does not mean everyone who misses a meal is in danger of refeeding syndrome. Not at all. Risk rises with malnutrition, substantial weight loss, very low intake, prolonged food deprivation, low baseline electrolytes, and certain health conditions. But the existence of refeeding syndrome is one reason prolonged fasting should not be treated as a casual online challenge. If someone has eaten little or nothing for several days, particularly if they are already underweight or unwell, breaking the fast may require medical assessment, laboratory monitoring, thiamine, electrolyte correction, and gradual nutrition. This is not a situation where a stranger online should prescribe a universal refeeding menu. So I want to discuss that all being said, we're going to talk about how to break an ordinary short fast. For a healthy person completing a typical overnight or time-restricted fast, breaking the fast can be simple. Choose a meal that provides real nourishment, include a meaningful source of protein, include a whole food carbohydrate if they work well for you, include healthy fats, include fiber and micronutrient-rich plants. Eat slowly enough to recognize fullness. You do not need to begin with a sugar explosion. You also do not need to fear food. Examples could include something like eggs with vegetables or some avocado toast on a whole grain or sourdough, some fresh fruit or a healthy smoothie, Greek yogurt with berries, nuts, and seeds, chicken, fish, tofu, beans, or another protein source with some rice or potatoes and vegetables. You could try some soup or stew that contains protein, veggies, and carbs. The exact food can vary by preference, culture, digestion, allergies, and your dietary pattern. The central idea is nourishment. Do not break every fast with highly processed food and then blame carbohydrates, fasting, or your metabolism for how you feel. And do not break a fast with a tiny snack when your body needs a genuine meal. The eating phase should not be a ceremonial pause before the next deprivation. It should be a real rebuilding phase. With breaking a longer fast, as the fast becomes longer, caution should increase. A person ending a longer fast may tolerate smaller portions more comfortably at first. Eating very quickly or consuming an enormous heavy meal may produce abdominal discomfort. It's going to give you a stomach ache, nausea, diarrhea, bloating, or reflux. Food can be reintroduced gradually based on the duration of the fast, the person's nutritional status, and medical risk. But once again, a person at meaningful risk for refeeding syndrome needs more than internet advice. They may need laboratory testing and supervised nutrition. Signs of a serious problem after refeeding can include worsening weakness, like you were feeling super weak, so you finally ate and now you feel even more weak, or if there's any kind of swelling or intense inflammation, shortness of breath, abnormal heart rhythm, feeling really confused, severe muscle cramping symptoms, or just neurological changes, this type of confusion. Those symptoms require medical attention. The lesson here is not to fear eating. The lesson is to respect the transition. All right, so let's discuss what you should eat between fasts because the quality of the eating period determines whether fasting becomes nourishment with rest or simply deprivation. The fasting window cannot compensate for a chronically poor diet. You cannot consistently live on ultra processed food, consume too little protein, neglect micronutrients, and assume that 16 hours without food will erase everything. No, fasting is not a nutritional force field. During the window of eating, we've got to prioritize foods that supply what the body can't make on its own without adequate amounts of protein, right? That's one. Protein provides essential amino acids. Dietary fats provide essential fatty acids and help with the absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Fruit, vegetables, legumes, herbs, spices, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, they can all provide fiber, minerals, vitamins, and a wide range of compounds that we can only find in plants. Animal foods, when included, they can provide highly bioavailable protein and nutrients such as vitamin B12, iron, zinc, choline, and lots of others. Plant-based eaters can also build nutritionally complete diets, but they may need to pay closer attention to protein variety. Be sure to supplement with B12, iron, calcium,
Wow.
iodine, omega-3 fats, and other nutrients. No, there is no single perfect fasting meal, but there is a difference between feeding your body and merely ending the timer. When you eat, eat with purpose. I want to discuss protein during the eating window because protein deserves special emphasis. Many people become so focused on fasting hours that they never ask whether their eating window contains enough protein. Protein needs vary based on your body size, your age, activity levels, your health status. If you're pregnant or recovering from anything. But the body generally benefits from receiving meaningful doses of high quality protein rather than one token bite at the end of the day. For someone eating with a short window, fitting adequate protein into one meal may be difficult. And this doesn't mean one meal a day fasting is always wrong, but it does mean the nutritional math matters. I mean, can you comfortably consume enough protein, energy, fiber, vitamins, and minerals in that meal? Are you maintaining your strength? Are you recovering from workouts? Is your weight stable if weight loss isn't your goal? Are you feeling nourished? Or are you using a compressed eating window that makes it almost impossible to meet your needs? Like a fasting protocol should fit the person. The person should not have to shrink to fit the protocol. So let's discuss fasting, exercise, and recovery. Some people enjoy exercising before their first meal. For certain healthy individuals, like light or moderate fasted exercise might feel comfortable, but fasted exercise is not inherently superior. It may increase fat oxidation during the workout, but that does not automatically translate into greater long-term fat loss. And total energy balance, recovery, training quality, protein intake, and consistency, they all still matter. If fasted training causes your performance to collapse, makes you dizzy, prevents progression, or leads to overeating later, it may not be serving your goal. Strength training is particularly valuable for preserving muscle but strength adaptation requires recovery and nutrition. You cannot continually ask the body to build tissue or refusing to provide construction materials. Think of fasting as clearing the work site. That may create space, but eventually the builders need lumber, concrete, wiring, and tools. The body needs amino acids, energy, minerals, and rest. Demolition is not reconstruction. Autophagy is not the whole story. Breaking down damaged components is so valuable, but health requires synthesis. We need to build enzymes, build hormones, build immune cells, build muscle, build connective tissues, build neurotransmitters, build new cellular structures. Fasting activates certain pathways, feeding activates others. We need both. Let's discuss sleep because sleep may be more important than extending the fast. One of the most common mistakes is sacrificing sleep to maintain a fasting schedule. Someone is hungry at night. They cannot sleep. Their heart feels activated. And so they lie awake thinking about food, but they refuse to eat because the fasting timer has not reached the goal. And then they wake exhausted, use more caffeine, experience more hunger and stress, and attempt another aggressive fast. That is not necessarily metabolic healing. Sleep affects glucose regulation, appetite hormones, mood, immune function, cognition, and recovery. A fasting schedule that repeatedly destroys your sleep may be undermining the very health you are trying to improve. Try adjusting the timing. Perhaps the eating window needs to begin or end later. Perhaps the fast is too long. Perhaps the final meal needs more protein, fiber, energy, or carbs. Perhaps stress is already too high. Be honest with yourself. A healthy plan should work with the nervous system, not constantly be poking at it and provoking it. That brings us to fasting during high stress seasons. There are seasons when fasting may feel natural and supportive, and there are other seasons when the body is already carrying a heavy load from grief, trauma, divorce, caregiving, or financial uncertainty, sleep deprivation, or intense workout demands, illness, recovery from surgery. These conditions do not always mean fasting is forbidden, but they change the equation. The body does not experience stress in separate labeled boxes. It integrates the total load. Imagine carrying a backpack. A short fast may represent one additional item placed inside. When the backpack is nearly empty, that item may be easy to carry. But when the backpack is already filled with sleep loss, emotional distress, illness, overtraining, and undernourishment, the same fast can feel very different. Sometimes the healthiest choice is to shorten the fast. Sometimes it is to maintain a simple overnight rhythm. Sometimes it is to focus on food quality rather than timing. And sometimes it is to eat breakfast. That is not abandoning fasting. That is understanding the rhythm. There is a time to refrain and there is a time to receive. So let's talk about building a safe fasting ladder. Rather than beginning with an extreme protocol, consider building a fasting ladder. The first step may be eliminating constant grazing. Eat more defined meals rather than continuously snacking from morning until bedtime. The second step may be creating a 12-hour overnight pause. Like, for example, finish eating at 7 after you've had dinner, and then just don't eat again until 7 the next morning. And observe. How do you sleep? How did you feel? How's your energy? Are you excessively hungry? Can you still meet your nutritional needs by cutting out that time and not eating from 7 to 7? If that goes well, great. Some people may gradually experiment within 13 or 14 hours. Perhaps dinner ends slightly earlier. Perhaps breakfast occurs a little bit later. There is no need to leap from constant snacking to a 3-day water fast. Adaptation takes time, and each step should be evaluated, not merely completed. The questions are, is this sustainable? Is this improving my health? Am I maintaining strength? Am I sleeping? Am I eating enough during the nourishment phase? Is food becoming simpler or more obsessive? Are my medical conditions stable? If the answers begin moving in the wrong direction, step back. The ladder is not a one-way climb, all right? You can make adjustments up and down as your personal body and needs require. Now, I want you to write your stopping rules before you begin. Before a longer fast, write down the rules that will cause you to stop. For example, I will I will stop if I faint or nearly faint. I will stop if I start becoming confused. I will stop if I can't stay hydrated. I will stop if I experience chest pain, serious shortness of breath, or an abnormal heart rhythm. I will stop if my glucose reaches a threshold established. I will stop if I develop repeated vomiting or severe abdominal pain. I will stop if I become too weak to function safely. I'll stop if the fast triggers compulsive or disordered thoughts. I will seek medical care when symptoms suggest an emergency. These rules protect you from making decisions while depleted, emotional, or determined to reach an arbitrary number. Also, decide how you will break the fast. What food will be available? Will you be alone? Will you need glucose monitoring? Will you need someone to check on you? Are you driving long distances? Are you responsible for children? Are you working around machinery? Safety includes the environment around the fast. Do not fast to impress the internet. You do not need to announce every fast. You do not need to prove that you completed it. You do not need to extend it because people are watching. Public accountability can be helpful. So if you want to be part of this, I'd love to get your comments. But it can also trap people inside a decision that should have changed. The internet rewards extremes. Finished dinner 2 hours earlier and felt good. That's not an exciting thumbnail. I ate nothing for 30 days. Well, that receives attention. But attention and wisdom are not the same thing. Extreme stories rise to the surface because they are unusual. That does not mean they represent the safest or most effective approach. Your body is not content. Your health is not a stunt. The most beneficial protocol may be too ordinary to go viral, and that is okay. You are building a life, not a headline. So let's talk about the difference between a clean fast and a healthy fast. The fasting world spends a great deal of time debating what technically breaks a fast. Does lemon break it? Does cream break it? Does broth break it? Does a supplement break it? Does a piece of gum break it? And those questions may matter depending on the purpose of the fast, a spiritual fast or a medical fast, a metabolic fast or a pre-surgical fast. And a research protocol, they may each have different rules, but there is a larger question. Is the fast healthy for the person doing it? You can complete a technically perfect water-only fast while ignoring dangerous symptoms. You can avoid every calorie and still become dehydrated. You can maintain ketosis and lose too much muscle. And you can achieve a low insulin level while damaging your relationship with food. You can win the argument about whether 5 calories broke the fast while missing the entire point. Purity is not the same as wisdom. A healthy fast, it's one that's appropriate for the individual, clear in purpose. It is limited in duration, compatible with medical safety, and followed by adequate nourishment. You need to define the purpose. Before fasting, know why you are doing it. Are you trying to reduce late night eating, improve metabolic flexibility, simplify your schedule, support a spiritual practice, prepare for a medical procedure, explore whether a shorter eating window helps glucose regulation? Each purpose may call for a different protocol. If the purpose is spiritual, the fast may include prayer, service, and donating the value of the meals that weren't eaten. If the purpose is metabolic health, consistency and meal quality may matter more than one heroic fast. If the purpose is weight loss, remember that fasting still works largely by changing energy intake over time. If the purpose is autophagy, recognize that we cannot precisely measure the process at home or promise an exact fasting hour when it reaches a magical threshold. If the purpose is healing a disease, fasting should not replace evidence-based care. Clarity protects you from continually moving the goalpost. And without a defined purpose, a 16-hour fast becomes 18, and 18 becomes 24, and 24 becomes 3 days. And the person, you, you might never stop to ask whether the additional duration created additional benefit. Remember, the body is not your enemy. So much diet culture is built on warfare. Fight hunger, destroy fat, crush cravings, conquer the body. But your body is not an enemy army. Hunger is not a moral failure. Hunger is a communication system. It can be influenced by habit, hormones, sleep, food quality, emotion, and environment. It is not infallible, but it is not meaningless either. Fasting can teach us that we do not have to obey every immediate urge. That is valuable. But fasting should also teach us to listen more carefully. There is maturity in being able to sit with a hunger wave. There is also maturity in recognizing when the body genuinely requires nourishment. Wisdom lives between impulsiveness and rigidity. It is neither eating every time a craving appears, and it's not refusing food just because the clock says you have 3 hours remaining. The goal is not domination. The goal is relationship. So I want to talk about what successful fasting should produce over time. A useful fasting practice should make life better. It may simplify eating, it may reduce late night snacking, it may improve awareness of true hunger, and it may help some people manage their energy intake. It may support healthier glucose regulation, and it may create spiritual focus. It may help someone understand that hunger is a sensation they can experience without panic, but it should not gradually produce fear, weakness, isolation, obsession, or nutritional decline. Ask what the pattern is producing. Are you becoming stronger, more peaceful, more metabolically stable, more capable of enjoying nourishing food, more flexible? Or are you becoming increasingly afraid to eat? Or are you avoiding social events? Or are you hiding your behavior? Are you repeatedly binging after fasts? Are you losing weight you cannot afford to lose? Are you cold, exhausted, and irritable? Are you proud of suffering? The fruit tells us something about the tree. So this is my fasting safety framework. And I want you to remember, first, purpose. Know why you are fasting. Second is readiness. Assess your health, medications, nutritional status, life stress, sleep, and relationship with food. Hi. Just second. Were you looking for him or me? Okay. Third, proportionality. Use the least extreme protocol likely to support the goal. Fourth is preparation. You need to plan hydration, medication timing, and activity. Monitoring and stopping rules and refeeding before beginning. So here is my fasting safety framework. It's the framework I want us to remember. First is purpose. Know why you are fasting. Second is readiness. Assess your health, medications, nutritional status, life stress, sleep, and relationship with food. Third, proportionality. Use the least extreme protocol likely to support the goal. Fourth is preparation. Plan hydration, medication timing, activity monitoring, stopping rules, and refeeding before beginning. Fifth is observation. Pay attention without panic and without denial. Sixth, nourishment. Treat the eating phase as part of the healing rhythm. Seventh, flexibility. Change the plan when the evidence from your own body calls for change. And eighth is humility. Do not confuse a personal experience with a universal prescription. A protocol that helped you may not be right for someone else. So, I want to give you a little bit about my own philosophy. I believe the human body was designed with an extraordinary capacity to adapt. It can move between fed and fasted states. It can store energy and release it. It can repair, recycle, defend, and rebuild. But the body was not designed only for emptiness. It was also designed to receive nourishment. The same God who created periods of fasting also created food. He created hunger. He created harvest. He created feasting. He created daily bread. Throughout scripture, fasting has meaning, but so does feeding the hungry. So does gathering at the table. So does receiving strength. So does manna. So does bread. So does water. Fasting and nourishment are not enemies. They are part of the same rhythm. The inhale is not better than the exhale. Day is not better than night. Work is not better than rest. And fasting is not better than eating. Each has a purpose, and health is often found in our ability to move between them. So before your next fast, I want you to pause. Do not begin only because you feel guilty about what you ate. Do not begin because someone online made you feel weak. Do not begin an extended fast because a thumbnail promised it would cure everything wrong with you. Ask, what am I hoping this fast will accomplish? Is there evidence that this protocol is appropriate for that goal? Am I physically and emotionally prepared? Do my medications require adjustment or professional guidance? Am I currently nourished? What symptoms will cause me to stop? How will I hydrate? How will I break the fast? How will I nourish myself afterward? And can I complete this practice without turning it into punishment? Those questions may not be dramatic, but they are the questions that protect people. Now, I want to talk about the courage to stop. There is a kind of courage required to begin a fast. You step outside your normal routine. You allow yourself to experience hunger. You learn that you do not need to respond immediately to every impulse. But there is also courage in stopping, especially when you announced the goal, especially when you wanted to reach a certain number, especially when part of you believes that eating means weakness? No, sometimes stopping is the discipline choice. Sometimes eating is the healing choice. Sometimes the strongest sentence you can say is, this fast has given me the information I needed, and now I am going to nourish my body. You do not have to hate your body into health. You do not have to starve it into obedience. You do not have to exhaust it to prove your faith. Your body has carried you through every day you have lived. It has adapted through injury, stress, grief, and illness. Pregnancy, sleepless nights, changing hormones, and everything else life has asked us to endure. Perhaps health begins not with forcing it harder, but with becoming a better listener. Fasting is powerful, but the power does not come from eating the least amount of food for the longest possible time. The power comes from restoring rhythm, a time to eat, a time to stop eating, a time to work and a time to rest, a time to break down and a time to rebuild, a time to empty and a time to be filled. Safe fasting is not timid fasting, it is intelligent fasting. It respects biology, it respects individuality, it respects nourishment, it respects medicine, it respects warning signs, and it respects the truth that your worth has never been measured by the number of hours you can go without food. You are not more worthy when you are empty. You are not less disciplined when you eat. And you have not failed when you respond wisely to the needs of your body. Fasting should serve your health. Your health should never be sacrificed to serve the fast. This is the message I want you to carry from episode 10. Create space, create rest, let the body access what it has stored, but then nourish it, rebuild it, strengthen it, and honor the full rhythm, because fasting is not the rejection of food. It is one part of a healthy relationship with food. It is not a war against the body. It is an opportunity to understand the body more deeply. And the goal is not to become the person who can endure the most deprivation. No, the goal is to become a person who knows when to refrain, when to receive, and how to care for this remarkable body that you've been given. If this episode helped you understand fasting in a more balanced way, share it with someone who may be pushing too hard or someone who is afraid that stopping a fast means they have failed. Subscribe so you can continue with us through the fasting project. And you can also visit my website, youareworthithealth.com, for more resources. The link is below in the description, where you can also find my book, Finally Understand Multiple Sclerosis, which is available on Amazon. But most importantly, take what you learned today and practice it with wisdom. Do not choose an arbitrary clock. Do not compete with another person's body. Do not ignore symptoms in the name of discipline. Build a fasting rhythm that leaves you nourished, strong, peaceful, and capable of living your life, because your health is worth protecting. Your body is worth listening to, and you are worth it. I will see you in episode 11.